This Mercedes smart car is so tiny that you can park it nose on to the pavement.
You might think it's very clever, but it isn't really. I mean, designing a small car is easy. Just means you end up with a small interior. This one doesn't even have any back seats.
It's easy to design a supercar too, because you don't have to worry your pretty little head about boot space or running costs. You just have to make it go fast, and anyone can do that. Just put a big engine in it.
Then there's the luxury saloon. And what exactly is hard about designing a big car and then nailing some wood to the dashboard? A few extra dials and switches, bit of extra soundproofing, and away you go.
But a family car, now that is almost impossible.
You see, it must be capable of taking all this. Daddy, Mummy, their 3 children, their clobber, and a dog.
Now, you could do this by making the car big, but unfortunately it's an overcrowded world, so it must be small. And it must also be capable of crashing into a concrete block at 40 miles an hour without causing any injury whatsoever to the people inside.
This means the family car must be immensely strong, with beams and membranes and cross members and side impact bars and strengthening material and airbags. And that means it ends up being fantastically heavy.
Now, to move all this weight around means you need more fuel. Of course, you might argue that's a small price to pay, but with petrol currently costing around £4 a gallon, it isn't. It's a huge price to pay. So we won't. What these people want from a family car is something that's safe and heavy, but also economical and fast. They want 35 miles to the gallon, a top speed of 115 miles an hour, total reliability, air conditioning as standard, and they absolutely will not pay more than £15,000 for it. So what you're complaining about? Because that's exactly what you've got here.
The Ford Focus is chocolate cake that makes you thin. It's a cigarette which cures cancer. It's classical literature that's fun to read. Daddy is happy because there's a rally version which gives his wheels some cred. The dog is happy because it's on television. Mummy's happy because there's a low loading sill for her shopping. And because there are 3 seatbelts in the back, the children are happy too. Even the neighbours are happy.
The Focus is cheap, economical, fast, fun to drive, small, safe, handy and spacious. It is perfect. So why then do you almost never see such a car on the school run? You see, the problem is simple. The Focus is fine until Victoria here decides that she'd like to bring her friend along, and at that precise moment it becomes completely and utterly useless.
And this means the traditional 5-seat family car is no good at all for a family. They need something bigger. In 1985, Renault's Espace was seen as an answer to all our dreams. No larger than a normal car, but able to seat 7, it was the perfect answer from a country with Catholic ethics on birth control.
I remember the first time I drove one of these things, and I was just stunned. You could have knocked me down with a small pork chop. I mean, I knew it had a Renault Fuego chassis and it had an ordinary 2-litre engine, but it was just so un-car-like to drive. The windscreen was so far away, you needed binoculars to see if the wipers were working.
And inside, the seats folded and swiveled and tilted and danced the dance. It was a bed. It was a conference room. It was the future. And pretty soon, all the other motor manufacturers leapt onto the bandwagon.
But then people started to say, hold on a minute. Why should I need to have a conference in my car? I can have one at the office. And why do I need a bedroom in here? I've got one at home.
Peel away the frills and the people carrier could be seen in its true colours.
It's a van. It's a plastic van with electric windows.
And that made the whole concept deeply uncool. Seat has tried to trendify the people carrier by jazzing it up. It's important to remember that no matter how many TV screens they put in the headrests and how big the wheels are, the people carrier is just that, a people carrier, like a bus. It isn't desperately practical either, not if you're having people over for the weekend and you need to stock up on cheese.
Look at this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Look. Wensleydale with blueberries. It's fantastic. Oh, this is no good at all. I have to take these seats out. That's better. Got some proper space for cheese.
Great. Except for one little problem. The seats have to stay in the shop. Mind you, this is where they belong. As I pointed out a few years ago on Top Gear, you certainly don't want your children sitting on them.
Sitting right back here, I find it hard to relax in this, or indeed any other people carrier. You see, if you get punted up the backside in an ordinary estate car, there's a lot of metal behind you to absorb the energy of the impact. It's called a crumple zone. But in this, I'm right up against the tailgate. My head is that far from the glass. I would be extremely nervous about letting my children sit back here.
Some firms have tried to address this by making their people carriers bigger. But it hasn't worked at all. The VW Caravelle, for example, really is a van. And so is the Mercedes V-Class. Then there's the long wheelbase Chrysler Grand Voyager. It's not a van, but in a recent safety report, it was the only vehicle to score 0 in the front impact test. Oh dear. So, to summarise, the people carrier can do people and cheese, but not at the same time. They have no street cred, there are safety worries, they're too unwieldy, and I hate all of them. Except one. Like most people carriers, the Vauxhall Zafira can seat 7, with those in the back jammed right up against the rear tailgate. But unlike most people carriers, it's normal to drive. It feels just like the Astra on which it's based. Not brilliant, but not big or bad either.
What makes this car so special is that most of the time it is a 5-seater with a big boot. But when you need those 2 extra seats, you don't have to go next door and ask big, muscly Bob to get them out of the garage for you. No. What you do is you just press this lever, slide the middle bench as far forward as it will go, and that way, when you open up the tailgate, look, there they are. And even me, who's 100% pure fat, can get them up that easily. They even come, look, with proper 3-point seat belts. So, if this car's so clever, and it is, how come we aren't seeing them everywhere? What's wrong with it? Yes, it's a Vauxhall. An 8-track badge in a CD-ROM world.
However, rather than drift away from the people carrier back toward the family hatchback, mothers have started to swarm in tightly organised groups of 200,000 or so toward the 4-wheel drive off-road car. Really and truly, it's hard to think of a more inappropriate selection of family cars than this. This is what off-roaders were built to do. Not this. If you trace the 4-wheel drive country car's family history, you end up here at the Willys Jeep. It even formed the basis of the original Land Rover. But it was Land Rover on their own who went on to create the Spark, the car that took off-roaders out of the mud and put them into Knightsbridge. The Range Rover Vogue was the first to marry chunky, go-anywhere ability with ball-gown luxury and style. It unlocked the floodgates, and soon there was a river of steel outside every school playground in SW3. And then, after the school run, some of them head off to take up more space than is strictly necessary in the gym car park. You see them at the supermarket too. And this is madness. If everyone in London changed their off-roaders for something smaller, the length of every jam would be halved at a stroke. And think of the fuel savings.
OK, what I'm doing now is a very simple test. I'm filling this 4.6-litre Range Rover Vogue SE up to the brim with petrol. Hold on a sec. I mean, right. I think you'll agree, this is now full, yes? Now, what I'm going to do is take it for a little drive. Then we're going to come back and fill it up again, and we'll see just how many miles to the gallon this thing is actually doing. All right, all I have to do now is zero the trip. There we go. And we're ready. Let's on road. I love driving Range Rovers, and I've never actually been able to put my finger on why. I mean, Yes, it's got a high driving position, but lots of cars have that. Yes, it's got a big V8. Lots of cars have one of those. It's got wood, but so what? So's a Jag. I think really it's a combination of everything. A knowledge, a surefire knowledge that you're in the absolute best of the best. Now, this thing is fuel injected, and you might think that the fuel injectors are like tiny hypodermic needles delivering minute quantities of atomised fuel into the cylinders. Well, they're not. What you need to do is think more in terms of 8 burly firemen squirting the petrol in through their hoses. OK. Now, I've been driving around for a couple of hours in the sort of stop-start city traffic that you get when you're taking the kids to school or going to work, and I've done 41.7 miles. And what I'm going to do now is fill it up to the brim again. You've got to brim it so it's all just spurting out. That's going to be, come on. That's it. 20.85 litres. And now we have to do the maths. OK, that's 20.85 litres. Now we'll convert that from Eurobabble into English by dividing it by 4.546 equals 4.58 gallons. We'll make a note of that. 4.5864 gallons. Okie doke. Now then, we did 41.7 miles divided by 4.5864 miles to the gallon coming up, everybody. 9 miles to the gallon.
I tell you, people who have off-road cars are stupid and mad. They should be driven from the roads and birched to within an inch of their lives. Off-road cars are daft, antisocial and idiotic, and the people who drive them are fools. This is mine. It's a 4-litre, 24-valve, 6-cylinder, 2.5-ton... what's the word? Monster. Well, I need an off-roader because where I live, the routes into town are so congested that the best way to school is down here.
See you tonight. Bye. Off you go.
Exploiting the right to roam can save 20 minutes a day, and that's worthwhile. But more important than this is the safety.
It's the sort of vehicle that if somebody hits you, you'd be very confident that strapped in here, you wouldn't be hurt.
It helps on the country lanes being up high.
And that's nice. Means you can look down on lesser mortals in their ordinary cars. But it means that the off-roader has to have a high centre of gravity, and that's not so nice. If you need to take emergency action on a motorway, it's more likely to roll over than a normal car.
And then we have braking. Or rather, we don't.
So, all things considered, the off-road car is not good at avoiding accidents. What, however, it's very good at is dealing with them once they happen. In a crash with a normal car, as you can see, the off-roader is clearly the place to be. Four-wheel drive cars, then, are like nuclear weapons. If one person has one, then for protection, so must everyone else. Horrified at the thought? Well, don't worry, you don't have to chain yourself to the railings at Land Rover's factory. Just wait till petrol hits £7 a gallon. Then see how many they sell.
So what have we established so far? Well, we know that the ordinary family saloon doesn't really work. We know that the people carrier is impractical, that the off-roader is really expensive, and that the Zafira is a Vauxhall. So where does this leave us? Well, I'm delighted to say it leaves us better off than we could possibly have imagined.
Come up to see me, make me smile. I'll do what you want, running wild.
This mad car, designed by a group of people who seemingly never met, is called the Fiat Multipla. It's 4 inches shorter than the hatchback on which it's based, but crucially, it's 5 inches wider. This means that there's space inside for 6 on 2 rows of 3, and that means there are no seats in the boot, which is therefore big enough for things. As a piece of straightforward, logical thinking, it's a masterpiece. Daddy's happy because it cost £13,000. Mummy's happy because she doesn't have to put the kids in the crumple zone. The children are happy because it's got a mad dash, and the dog's happy because it's on television again.
But best of all, Victoria's friend can go too. She doesn't have to stay at home and eat worms.
Funny, isn't it? That this is the only prediction about life in the year 2000 that's actually come to pass. We don't live on pills and we don't wear Baker foil suits. But we do have to drive around in a car that looks completely bonkers.
Stay right here. UK TV People is driving into the fast lane with some seriously entertaining and high-speed motoring history. Clarkson's Car Years, next.